Hello, my name is Della Mae Reynolds Carter. I'm at the Reynolds Homestead in Christ, Virginia. I am going to be interviewing today Miss Vera Smith Reynolds. And do I have permission to record this interview with you?
You do.
Thank you. So glad to have you here today. I will be asking you some questions about your background, your skills, your personality, and as well as some questions about your career goals and your admiration to this point.
Okay.
What is your full name?
My full name is Vera Anna Louise Smith Reynolds.
Where and when were you born?
I was born August 10th, 1948, in Ararat, Virginia, at Dr. A.M. Gates' office
Was that in Ararat?
in Ararat.
What is your parents' name?
My parents were Eugene Thaxton Smith and Maddie Pamelia Sarah Isabel France. She was known mostly as Omelia. Omelia.
Can you tell me a little bit about them and where they were born? And
All right. Dad was born in Ararat. His family were also born in Ararat, and descendants. We are also descendants of Hard Smith. Grandpa Reed was on the plantation there, and he evidently was very, very talented in whatever he did because he inherited the property after the people passed.
so, what was the plantation name?
I don't know what it was called, and that's a good question. I'll have to find. That's another research question. But yeah, but it's. I just don't. I don't remember. Anyway, Mom was born in Ararat, and it was also called Brim, Virginia. So on their birth certificates, it says Brim, Virginia. And her grandmother was her mom's midwife. She delivered lots of children in the community, and she lived to be over 100 and delivered many children in the area. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Also, tell me about your husband and your children.
My husband was William Harold Reynolds Sr., the son of William Burton Reynolds and Mary. No, well, she didn't use Mary, but Frances Elizabeth Hilton Reynolds, and he was born. He was born in Ararat also. I think he and his sister. He was one of 8, and he had. I don't know how to say it. He had his brothers and sisters were all much younger. He was supposed to be the macho man of the family, and he loved his children dearly, and they loved him dearly. And matter of fact, I said, I don't think you all love me at all, but I had to be the heavy. He was a truck driver. And when he came home, the world just revolved around him. And, I the only thing I needed to do was make sure food was available.
So, how many children did you have?
I had 2.
Two.
Yes. Erica Lee Reynolds is my oldest, and William Harold II.
Did you have any grandchildren?
I have 2 granddaughters. Right now, one who just graduated from high school, and the other is 16, going on 60. But anyway, she lives in Greensboro, and my other granddaughter lives with me right now. Some sad situations, but we won't go into that. But
Okay, tell me a little bit about your school and your school name, and where was it located, and when did you start and finish.
Okay. I started at Patrick Central High School. It was called the high school. At the age of 6, first grade with Miss Moore. And then I went to, my mom remarried, and I'll tell you that story later. And we ended up going to Chicago, and I lived there a year and a half, almost 2 years, and came back to the 3rd grade. Awful, awful, awful situation in the 3rd grade. I had to fight every day. The kids would hit me. They called me Old German because I had a northern accent. But when I went to Chicago, guess what? I had a southern accent. And so the kids would make fun of me, and nobody ever said anything. But it's okay. I just got to the point I didn't speak. I didn't talk. So I did that until for a long, long time. I still now don't talk I talk now to make up for what I've missed. But anyway, I ended up when 1964, when they passed the Civil Rights Act, and when they had already done the 1955 where you could have freedom of choice or whatever had happened during that time. Mama decided that we all were joining NAACP in Mount Airy, because I don't think there was one in Patrick County. So we all joined. And that summer, she decided that she freely chose for us to go to the local school that was 5 miles away instead of riding all the way 20 miles to Patrick Central. So I entered the 12th grade at Blue Ridge High School, and one of my classmates was standing there waiting for me to come in, and he said, "Here comes that no-tail monkey." So I went in, and that no-tail monkey went in there and sat down, and I didn't say anything. I didn't talk or anything unless the teacher asked me questions. They were not happy to see me in there either. But that was okay, I honestly didn't care. What was interesting about all that is the fact that everybody knew our family. They knew Daddy, and they knew my dad's family, because they lived there in Ararat, and to find out my grandfather and grandmother fed half of Ararat during the Depression. People would come to their house, and she'd have big meals cooked and stuff, and they ate. And if they needed to take something, they took it. She gave it to them. They gave it to them. So I didn't understand why, I guess it was just whatever the signs of the times, the Jim Crow era and stuff. I got my aunt in trouble. My great aunt, she would take us to Mount Airy to shop. They had to go to do their banking and whatever, because it was shorter to go there. We went into a drugstore. I wanted something, a hot dog, or I think it was a hot dog and a soda. I walked in. I was 9 years old at this time. I walked in and plopped right down on that stool, just as big as old Mac. I didn't know I wasn't supposed to sit down. She didn't tell me. She kept saying, get up, Vera, get up. And the guy that was there said, "It's okay, you can let her sit there." And I didn't get to go into stores anymore with her. She wouldn't let me go in.
It was a different time back then.
It was a different time back then. And I didn't understand, I didn't understand. But then we were kind of living in Ararat. Your neighbors were whoever they were, whoever owned the property. They may be black, they may be white, they may be Indian. But you wouldn't know that they were Indian, because that wasn't safe either. So that's the... Did I answer your question? Oh, good. Because I ramble.
Did you go to college?
I did.
And where did you go?
I went to Virginia Union University in Richmond.
What year was that?
19 1966 through 1971. So that's where I graduated from, and it was the absolutely marvelous, marvelous experience. And here's this country bumpkin girl walking the streets, need to go to the store, walking the streets of Richmond, not knowing that I could have been grabbed, murdered, or what have you. But I would walk downtown to Broad Street, and I studied. That's what I was sent there for, was to study and not to party. And I could not understand why these kids were always in a party or something all the time. I said, but that's not why you're here. That's why they were here. But that wasn't why I was there. I had a desire to teach because of some of the experiences I had at Patrick Central and at Blue Ridge. My major was bacteriology at first. And no, I wasn't that smart. But as I got into it and we had to go and view an autopsy, that did it. Done. And I changed my major to education. And I had done, had a major of accounting at one time too. When you make an F, first F I ever made in my life was in accounting. Well, come to find out, I really didn't make an F. The book was wrong, and it was off a penny. And you know how many times you add and subtracted, you still came up with a different answer than what the teacher said it was. And after she had given me the F, she finally discovered it. So I don't know how she discovered it. No, you didn't really make an F. I made an A, but it was too late. It was already in the system. She didn't change the grade. And that broke my heart. I said, nope, done with that. She begged me to continue. She was a sweet lady too. She begged me to stay in accounting. I said, no, ma'am, I cannot make Fs. I cannot make Fs. So I changed it to education. And we took so many classes. Virginia Union's philosophy was, if you made a C, don't call me. If you made a D, no way. You had to make B or an average of B or an A, and they would recommend you for jobs. And everything, your goal there was to be productive. And they would teach us so many things. I had enough psychology classes. I could have been a psychiatrist. I needed it for myself, but anyway. but that's the way it turned out. That and I graduated with, I think it says cum laude. It may say cum laude. I can't remember which one. But anyway, the professor that. Our education professor said, you have to learn to be able to teach in a one-room schoolroom with hardly no equipment. And so they taught us how to fix the machines and stuff. So I could always fix. I loved it. I always fixed the projector and all those different things in when I was working, because it was a grade. You had to learn you name the equipment, we had to know how to do it. And there was no such thing as a printer. You had to do this crank thing. It was cute. I had fun doing that.
So from your school experience, where I'm listening and hearing, you're highlighting your key strength and your experiences that you were facing. So by going through that experience, how did it help you when you got out of college to adapt to what was around you?
When you say around me, you mean in the
workplace?
Workplace.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the professors made sure that we were highly knowledgeable. You had to know more. That was one of the philosophies at Union. You have to know more, and you continue studying. You don't stop. If something new pops up, you learn about it. You read. And that experience taught me that any child can learn, regardless of their emotional, mental abilities. Every child can learn, and that made, and you had to find the niche that helped them to learn, like the different learning styles. There's some kids who learn by listening and seeing, and some by hearing. And when you mix all those things together, you're going to grab them. And you always make them feel like they're somebody, even if their feet don't match. So you encourage them. You even if they call you a dirty name, and I've been called quite a few things in my time, and I would say, "Oh, gee whiz, you mean you know that? I was trying to hide it." And I just keep teaching. I just keep talking. And the kids would look at me like, "You're not going to send him to the office? You're not going to fuss at her? Or you're not going to..." "No, I don't have time for that." I says, "If you're trying to get out of my class, I'm so sorry. You're not going. You're stuck with me, so you can behave or whatever." And I've had some successes. I've taught children who didn't speak any English whatsoever, and who have had severe problems in their homes, and in I wouldn't allow they could not be teased or bullied, and if I knew that's what was happening, I did something about it because of the experiences that I had growing up. You don't do that because they are worthy. Everybody is worthy.
So it seems through what you just said, and what was your biggest motivation? I know there was probably some good and bad, but I'm pretty sure there was something that keep you driving towards you wanting, and your compassion for it.
I don't. I think because we had to go to insane asylums, and seeing kids whose parents had, one little boy had on a striped shirt like a bumblebee. His mother told him he was a bumblebee that morning. So he buzzed around all day. I went to another asylum, and it was in Petersburg. And it was a girl that I don't know what her mother had said or done to her, but she had been institutionalized since a little girl, and she got out. She was happy, and then her mother said something and made her snap, and all she could do was walk around the room. They said, "Be careful, because she'll probably strip her clothes off and walk through in here naked." And she says, just ignore her. And all she could do was walk around the room and holler, "Ada, Ada, 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 Ada." That was her name. So she had been abused severely. And my motivation was, I'm going to make sure that no child feels that way that I have any contact with. And so that's, I guess you could say that was my motivation during the classes, the psychology teachers and things of that nature, teaching us, you have to look at these children where they are, and you have to empower them to want to improve themselves, and that their circumstances, their former circumstances or what have you, is not to affect their future. So that was my biggest motivation, was seeing that, plus the experiences that I had had with Blue Ridge and at Patrick Central. And I don't remember the name. It wasn't named. It was a number school in Chicago. So those things made me determined. And I had two teachers awesome lady. Mrs. Ethel Butler Brim. She rode our bus to work. You remember her? Yep. She was a wonderful fourth grade teacher, and she made you feel like, I'm glad you're in here, and you can do it. And she was an inspiration. And Mrs. Bell, you remember Miss Bell? Well, she taught me. You do? Yep. She taught French, and she taught English, and she taught me piano. So I got to have penny piano lessons, $1 an hour. Wasn't that awesome? And $1 was hard to come by then. And Mama had 3 others to deal with. So, yeah. But anyway, yeah, that's.
So through your motivation, I love the way you said you was determined that you did not want a child to have to go through that experience again.
Exactly.
So what was your strength to show them the ability and have the alignment with your position in your life? I mean, how did you get the strength up to continue when I know there was dark days?
Oh, yes, it was. Okay. When the adversarial things would happen, I did not know that. I'll tell you this tidbit, and I'll go there. I did not know I had the highest test scores in the school system and in Surrey County. And the teachers would make sure that I had students who had all kinds of problems, emotional behavior, and what have you. Okay. I said, okay, I don't care. Just give them to me. I love them. I would repeat that question to make sure I'm getting it right.
What are your strengths? It's to showcase your ability and how they had aligned it up with you in your position in your life today.
Okay. I guess I'm an Energizer bunny. And the more adversarial things that happened to me, and with the situations that I just mentioned, I made sure my kids had the best. If they didn't understand it, I'd explain it. I would use whatever means that I needed to help them get their lessons, to do their homework. Kids couldn't have time to do homework when they got home. Of whatever was transpiring there, they didn't have any food to eat, so we started having breakfast. I brought my electric frying pan, and I fried sausage, bacon, eggs, sometimes hash browns, sometimes apples, and biscuits. And we ate, and the kids performed. Because that's when I discovered they were hungry. That's why they weren't doing what they needed to do. And I do things like that. I would do some crazy. The teachers would be so mad at me. Lord have mercy. And one of the principals that I had asked me, he says, why do you keep coming back every year? And the way that they treat you. I said, I'm determined they're not going to run me off. You messed up. You don't do that. You don't do that. You don't know where I came from. You don't know what I've been through. And having negative things happen to me, you learn to, and I think it's ancestral. You just keep going. You do what you got to do. And they hired me to teach. That's what I did.
So, through that, what are your weaknesses? Describe from your past and how it improved you to get where you are today. And that it could be name calling, whatever it was that you had to face through that weakness.
I'm not sure. Let's see, name calling Boney Maroney, Skinny Minnie. I was about this big. But I had to make up for that. I had to fix that. Anyway, how did I forge through it? go away. And I just would go forward, because the things that had affected me, from my daddy's murder to 3 stepfathers, through other stuff, a narcissist, my choices were always do right, always be positive. Church was important, extremely important. And I held fast to those things, and I was just, I would look at some of the kids and, the cussing at me and calling me names and things of that nature, and I just look at them and said, okay, now give me the definition of what you just called me, and make sure you know what you're talking about. And I'd hand them the dictionary and paper and pencil. I said, now when you write it down, make sure you give it to me 50 times, or what have you. I taught them to be careful what you say, but know what you're saying. And I don't want to use the wordy dirt as we used to fix it, but I was called a bitch, okay? All right, what is a bitch? And it's a female dog. So when the kid had said that to me, and I had him write it 50 times, and he looked it up, and he said, oh, okay, he didn't use that word anymore. And when they called me a nigger, oh, what's a nigger? It's an uneducated fool. Write it for me 100 times. I wasn't called that. Anymore. And the person felt stupid. You could tell that they felt out of place after they learned the definition. So I had to make every negative a positive. Every negative a positive. That's just what I had to do. And don't ask me how I figured out to do that. I just did it. Maybe it was Daddy's influence or what have you. I don't know. One semester I got ulcers, and I had to come home. I begged the doctor, Dr. Calloway, please, not to send me home. When he said, we can't feed you. They made me go. I came home, and Mama baked chicken. I wanted fried chicken. So I ate the baked chicken and the fried chicken. She made me go to work. I worked at Quality Meals, and I said, Heavenly Father, if you ever let me get out of this place, I will not leave. I will not come home until I graduate. That's what I did. But anyway, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, the wisdom that I was hearing as well, and your accomplishment, and I know it had to make you proud of who you are today, even though you might not feel it. But what is that accomplishment that you felt like I did achieve?
Okay. Well, I've always been inspired to be humble. Being prideful was not, no. I've never thought I've done enough. I need to do more. So, read that again.
What is your accomplishments are you have most proud of, that you are most proud of?
Now,
Yes.
right now,
Right now.
when I see my former students and they'll stop with their wives and children and say, oh my God, it's Miss Reynolds, and hug me. I have the Latino kids. I have one young man. He's not young. Nobody's young anymore. But a former student that lives in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I think I'm telling you right. Anyway, he was a very successful businessman. He's retired. He's been retired for quite a while. And he texts me practically every day and shows me pictures of his travels and things of that nature. And he says that I made a difference in his life. So when I hear that, that makes me know I did the right things. That the way that some of the girls and things of that nature and would respond to me. My daughter-in-law, I taught her, and she didn't say much in class, and she's still, I'm Miss Reynolds, you know, but she calls me, she doesn't call me anything. She doesn't even call my name. But anyway, it was just that being, that really makes, now that's what makes me extremely proud. And some of those rowdy boys, oh, you were tough, you were strict. No, I had 11 competencies to teach when the teacher next door only had 4. I didn't have time to play. So, you know, I just did what I had to do.
I believe you did a great job.
Oh, bless you.
And so you was in your conversation, I heard you said there was 2 people that encouraged you to go for your dream. But give me the one that really stuck out the most in your life.
The one that stuck out the most. I could say it was Miss Brim, because she lived very, very humbly in a log cabin in Ararat, and her husband was the handsomest man. Lord have mercy. Okay, Edgar was beautiful. But anyway, she did, and she was sitting on the bus. She didn't talk on the bus when we would go, you know, she didn't drive. But when we'd go to school at Patrick Central, and she'd frown if you were doing the right thing. She didn't say anything. She'd just get that scowl on her face. You knew to sit down and be quiet. And the kids around us that were teasing and picking and stuff, when she did that, they sat down and got quiet. And I liked the way she did those things, and I liked the way she disciplined. And we had some very, very, very rowdy kids, girls too. I didn't know girls could be so outlandish. And, you know, because in where I came from, they weren't. We were demure, you know, we just did what we were told. And I have to say, she's the one teacher that inspired me the most.
I remember Miss Brim also. She came to Harden Reynolds and stuff, and I had her as well. And her quality of who she was, you could feel the difference from her. Correct? You could feel the difference. And she empowered you. And she made you feel like you were smart and that you can do it. That you can, that's who she was. But she was the most influential person. You seem as though your career and your life has truly made a difference. So, but we want to talk a little bit about your ancestor and where they came from.
Okay. My ancestors are from here at the Reynolds Homestead and in Ararat and Stokes County. My grandfather was born and raised in Stokes County. His father and mother, his mother was Native American. His father was white and African. And my grandfather on my dad's, that's on my mother's side. On my dad's side of the family, my grandmother, well, I just discovered all this through my genealogy research. My mother was his mother was a Carter, and her father was a well, she was a Dunkley and a Carter. So there's a Dunkley plantation around in Ararat somewhere, and then the Smith side, my grandpa Reed, like I said earlier, he was on the Smith Ayers plantation because his wife was an Ayers. She was Dicey Ayers was her name. She was on the Ayers plantation, and I have been to Hardin Smith's grave, and beside of him are two slaves that are buried, and I think it's my grandfather, great 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 grandfather, and great 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 grandmother, because there's two slaves buried right beside of them that showed the status of their for the family, according to what I was told. And it was just awesome to see it. And you know, you have to embrace the slave issue in a way you couldn't stop it. Or why are you gonna? We're here. I'm an American citizen, born and bred. You can't change that. Why am I going to be negative? Why am I going to be awful about it? And tear down monuments and all that stuff. You need to know your history. You need to know what happened in the past, because that's what makes you who you are. And knowing these things about granddaddy and grandmother, it's the endurance and the things that they put up with. All right, like when I would teach the kids, I had to teach slavery, and you know, one of my little fellows came to school with his leather coat on him. He kept getting up and going to the trash can and turning around, and he would do this. I didn't pay attention. He had a rebel flag on the back of his jacket, and when I would ignore it, I would say, "Oh, I like that rebel flag. Let me tell you about it." I made it a learning experience. He took the coat off and hung it on the back of his chair, and he had the hat. I'm not going to tell this part. Yeah, I'll tell it. I still have the hat. One of the kids left it on my desk after school, and I didn't know. I said, "Okay, well, what's this?" And I just took it home, and I kept it, and I still have it. But you make a learning experience out of negative. You don't have a choice. You got to live. You ready for me to quit?
No, you're good.
Oh, okay.
So, how are you related with the Reynolds Homestead, which we know it as the Rock Spring Plantation, right here in Clarks, Virginia?
In doing the genealogical research, I was trying to find out, like I said, I needed to know who I was. And I started looking for my ancestors. Well, my mother would tell me stuff about on her side just a little bit. She wouldn't tell me much. Would interview my grandfather to find out some stuff. But anyway, I said, okay, tell me about your grandfather and your great grandfather and stuff like that. And when she didn't, she just gave me some names, and I started looking. Well, in records, and I've got the notebooks. If I ever can get to them, I've got to pull them out. I found my great-great-grandfather's, yes, that's right, great-great-grandfather's name listed as one of the slaves on Rock Spring Plantation. And he was working in the tobacco factory, the early tobacco factory that was here, and he told exactly what he did. But I don't remember exactly, that. I just was so awestruck. I said, and I would come to the Reynolds Homestead and just walk around. And I've been in the house before, years and years ago. But so that's what I would do. And when I found out that I was connected, I thought, oh my goodness, this is awesome. I am related to R.J. Reynolds. So, finding the ancestors and doing it's just awesome. It's just, I just can't put it into words. I'm learning who I am.
Can you tell me the name of the organization that you have joined with the Reynolds Homestead?
The ancestors and descendants of R.J. Reynolds. I love it.
Would you recommend this to the community, or how would you tell the people, and what have you felt out of this organization?
I have felt empowered to know and to spread the word. I tell everybody that I see, have you ever been to the Reynolds Homestead? You need to go. You need to go look. I don't want to learn anything about those slave stuff. It's who you are, sweetie. You need to know your past. You need to know why people act the way they do, why they behave the way they do. I've even gone as far as finding out what country my ancestors came from, and I've got, I think I have 37%, I'm 37% African. Okay, what's the rest of me, And Spain, Native, Wales, Ireland, Scotland, Denmark, and all those, and there's a couple of others. Irish, did I say Irish? Anyway, the most inspiring. Did I answer your question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. I noticed when you said all the names, that is, you'll find out who you are.
Mm-hmm.
It was also said on the Reynolds side, as far as if you want to take it further, as far as my people, as far as Grandma Ida and all of them,
Yes.
They come finding out they're over 60% white.
Uh-huh.
That's a high number.
Very high.
And for you to say that you got all these in one,
Mm-hmm.
it makes you want to probably find out a little
bit more.
Okay.
No, not a little bit more. A lot more.
Okay.
I've got to do it. Okay. I must.
There's different ways you have been searching?
Well, on the LDS website, you can find bunches of stuff, bunches of information, because every 40 years, the government releases information about the census and death records and things of that nature. And I found a lot of information through that. And Ancestry.com and the LDS website, they merge. And I have found out so many things. And it my phone will ding. And sometimes you've got a hint, new ancestor, and stuff. And I just, the other day, I got a ding. And this lady listed on my husband's side of the family, on his mother's side, all the way back to England. So he is basically white and Indian. He was white and Indian because it wasn't safe to be an Indian. It was open season, and it wasn't until 1972. I think I'm telling you the right year. That it was open season on killing Indians. So they had the Indian Removal Act, and they came to Ararat, and there was an order for all the natives to be. And I know I'm probably going off question, but that's me. I never stick to it. But anyway, they killed majority of the men, and the women hid in the caves and woods and all kinds of good places. And so, and when the men didn't come back, and the food had run out, they for survival, they married whoever they could. But read that again, that last part. Make sure I covered what you asked me.
Now, I was just asking you a question to just hearing it from the ancestors and just how you learned so much from it.
Oh, yeah.
And how, it has improved
Oh, yes.
even more to know who you
We are.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. And knowing the survival, knowing how to survive, to cook things. I know now I can go outside of here and pick me some greens and pick me some berries and apples and things, and I don't hunt, but my brothers did, and fish, and I could feed my family. I mean, my aunt taught me these things too, and so, because she did it one time, and I said, "What are you doing, digging up that weed? That's not a weed, Vera. You can eat this." And she cooked it, and I ate it, and it was good. And poke salad, talk to me.
A lot of people don't know what poke salad is.
I know it.
It is very good for you.
Yeah, and it's very good health-wise, and it was used medicinal.
Well, in this interview, did you feel I covered everything that was a part of your life as far as from the beginning to the end, and you can see yourself where you started?
Mm-hmm.
And I know you thank God for where.
Yes, where I am today. Every day, off day long, I am so thankful for it. And I think back to watching my brothers make the fire in the stove. Phew. It was cold as gee whiz in our house, and it would take them so long to get the fire going so you could get warm, and I'd stand behind the stove I can't. I don't like to be cold. Oh yes, most definitely.
Wonderful. That's wonderful.
I'm so thankful.
Well, Miss Vera, we want to thank you so much for coming and sharing the life experience from the good,
Yes.
the bad, and the ugly.
Ugly. Oh, thank you.
And we hope in the future that we'll be able to work with you again. And we just want to say thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Can I just ask, are there any stories that were passed down to you from your parents or anything that you would hope go on to the next generation that you maybe haven't told?
The stories. I can't think of any because mostly everything was lessons. I mean, you were just, it was not blatant lessons like ABC. You watched when it was safe for people to come to our house. I'm going to use my aunt because it was her basically that I learned a lot of this stuff from, and like when it was safe to come to her house, and I don't know what they were afraid of, but she'd hang a quilt up on a porch, and it'd have a black center. On the other side, it had a red center. If it was red, you don't go. If it was black, you'd come to her house. And she would feed you, and if you didn't eat, you took it with you. And a lot of times if you ate, you took it with you, took some with you too. She would just say, by doing things, the way that she did things, how she made the lye soap and how she gathered the chickens and the chickens' eggs, and when she would kill the chickens, I used to hate watching her wring the chicken's neck, but she didn't verbally say things because it was like stuff you didn't talk about. She would just make sure you knew what not to do. And with Mama, she worked all the time. And Granddaddy, he would tell me things. Granddaddy Colonel, he wasn't a colonel or anything. We don't know why he was named Colonel, but it was his nickname, because his name was not Colonel. But he would just say, Vip. He'd call me Vip. You don't do this, that, and the other, and just stuff like that. It was their actions and the way that they told. I don't know. I can't put it into words. It was their actions that spoke louder than words. And you knew we always knew when we were safe. Don't know who we were to be afraid of because you didn't see anybody, but she knew. She knew.
Well, by them coming up the way they did,
Mm-hmm.
they experienced a lot more
Mm-hmm.
than what you had probably had
Right.
experienced. But I know you were still experiencing a lot.
Uh-huh.
And they probably already knew a lot of things to see, not to see, that us children, a lot of times we don't
Right.
we don't see.
Right.
So I guess through that learning experience, they was telling you how to do this and that.
Uh-huh.
That it just made you more aware
Right.
of your
And
surroundings.
and you were not afraid. They made sure that you knew that you were safe. Like you didn't have to be afraid by the way that they presented themselves, and even going like the experience with going down to Mount Airy. She didn't say to me, "Vera, don't sit on that. You're going to get in trouble. You're going to get us in trouble." She didn't say that. She just very gently, had me stand up, and she says, "Well, get your hot dog. We're going to go down. We've got to go such and such." So we'd have to go. That's how she did it. It was. Did I answer your question the way you wanted it? Okay. That's what she would do. It was subtle, little subtle things. And when one experience, I'll have to tell you this one. You couldn't try on clothes when you went into the stores. Well, I needed a new dress, and I found that picture of the dress and with me wearing it the other day. It was in my little safe. Mama wanted me to have a new dress for pictures, and for I think it was Easter coming up. The store closed. The store was closed, and Mama says, "Come on, let's go in. Let's go in." I said, "Mama, it's dark in there." "Oh, no, you didn't question my mother. That was one thing you didn't do. You did what she said, lickety split." And I said, "Okay." So I went in. We went in to the basement, and I had to try on the dress to make sure it fit because I was so small. Because I probably didn't tell you I didn't weigh a pound when I was born. So they said, "Lay it up there in the morning. It's not going to live." But anyway, here I am. God has plans for me. But He's not through with me yet. But we tried on this dress. I tried on this dress. And Mama bought it. And I said, "Well, why are we here in the nighttime after the store closed with only one worker in here?" And it was a man. She said, "Let's go, Vera." I always question stuff, I want to know. Why? And so she didn't tell me, "You can't try on the clothes in the store." She says, "Let's go." So I dropped it. Anyway, did I answer your question?
So you were left to infer
Infer.
what to do.
And why? Yeah. And I think I learned at Union. But it was past the Jim Crow era during that time. In fact, matter of fact, the Civil Rights Movement, the semester that I came home with the ulcer, my cousin said, "Let's take over the administration building." And I knew I would have been standing right there beside him. He was the basketball star of our team. They called him Hatch. He was my first cousin. His mother was my dad's sister. Anyway, and he was into Virginia Union. That's probably why we ended up going there. But anyway, what was I saying? That experience what was I saying? Seriously, I can't remember. I talk so much.
You was the basketball player.
Yeah, before that, before.
Your dress.
Oh yeah, the
You
dress.
finished your dress and
Yeah.
didn't try it on.
Right, and see, not knowing all these things, I think I learned about the Jim Crow laws and all that stuff in the history classes at Union. I think that's what made me, you know. But then you couldn't find anything. You couldn't discover a whole lot. But I would ask questions, and inquiring minds always want to know.
I take it that your family didn't really talk about,
No.
your grandparents didn't talk about their grandparents,
No,
what they went through.
no.
For some reason, back in the day, it's like I remember a lot of what Aunt Thelma said. There were some things you just didn't talk about.
Yeah.
They might have experienced a lot of things, but the pain, they didn't want to relive.
Relive it. They didn't want to relive it.
And
Yeah.
they done all they could to keep us where we didn't have to
Face it,
a
yeah.
lot of it. I think this.
You're right. To make sure you didn't have that little same experiences, they went out of their way. Yeah, to make sure you didn't know. And because I know that they had some interesting times. I mean, my father, they tell me, was very well respected, and his family was well respected by the people in the community. You know, they just. So the community treated us fairly decently, you know, pretty decently, except when I went to school.
Do you think a lot of times it may be because of that Reynolds name?
Well, now it could be too, but I was a Smith.
You were Smith then.
Yeah,
Yes.
I was a Smith then, and yeah, it could yes, most definitely, because they knew who we were. You know, and the reputation our families had, because you had to be reserved, very, very reserved, and watch what you said, and watch what you did. Yes.
Do you ever wish that they would have told you more, or are you glad they didn't tell you?
I wish they had told me more. I would love to have known the pains and the struggles and things of that nature that they went through. It would have given me a different. It would have given me an early start. Maybe they thought that I would be a troublemaker or something. I don't know, because then I would ask. You know, I can approach anyone. I don't. It doesn't matter to me if you're white, black, purple, green, or blue. And that was part of that too. And I think I just noticed how Mama and Aunt Ella and Uncle Vaden, they were like my grandparents. Aunt Ella and Uncle Vaden were, because my grandparents died when I was younger. But because I think they were much older. But anyway, and my aunt and uncle, they were kind of took over when Dad died.